Hello and welcome to episode 41 of Think Big with Michael Zellner, all positive, no politics. My guest today is Kelly Wolf. Kelly is an actress who was born in Memphis, who now lives in Studio City, California. She starred in several specials back in the 1980s on ABC after school specials, CBS specials, along with a few major motion picture comedies. And her breakout role came in 1990 when she starred in Stephen King's movie Graveyard Shift. She's also had several guest starring roles over the years, including shows like Law and Order: Criminal Intent, Grey's Anatomy, Parenthood, and Gilmore Girls: A Year in the Life. Welcome to the show, Kelly.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Michael.
My pleasure. So tell us something interesting about yourself most people don't know.
Hmm. I guess most people would not know that my eyes are different colors. I have a green eye and a brown eye, which when I was growing up was always looked at as something special. And people are always like, well, did you get made fun of for that? But no, everybody always just thought it was cool and special. And I guess most people wouldn't know because when I work in television and film, I have a brown contact lens that makes them the same color. A couple of times I've worked on TV shows where the director was like, no, I think that's really cool. Let's just leave them different. But most of the time, especially when I first started out, people really wanted me to have, the same colored eyes. So,
I've never heard of somebody having two different color eyes before. That is really cool.
oh, thanks. It's a genetic mutation. I think it's called hemochromatosis, and I think it depends on what the coloring is, what the odds are. Like I think the most unique coloring is brown and blue, and then brown and green, and then I think green and blue is more common.
Oh, very cool. So, what do you remember most about your childhood growing up in Memphis?
Um, I loved growing up in Memphis. Um, I guess the thing that I remember the most is when we first moved into our house, which was Kirby Parkway and Neshoba. We lived on two dead ends, and we would leave after school, go play out in these fields and woods and discover old graveyards that were back there and creeks and ditches, and it was just sort of a free childhood fun. And yeah, loved it.
I forgot that it was dead end there, right there at the both sides of there on Kirby and then on the
Yeah.
Neshoba.
And
Yeah,
now it's, a stoplight and
right,
of big streets and apartment buildings and Kroger and
right.
Kirby Mall. And it used to just be fields.
Yeah, the good old days when you could play outside and just have fun and not worry about anything.
It was amazing.
You left Memphis to head to LA and New York, obviously, to pursue an acting career, and you decided that you were going to go for it. So, those two cities obviously, were the place to be. Do you remember what was going through your mind at the time when that happened?
I do. I mean, I actually moved to New York when I wanted to be ballet dancer. And so I was pursuing ballet and just kind of decided to take an acting class for fun and just to sort of complement the performance aspect of ballet. And I just fell in love with it immediately, felt like, oh my goodness, this is where I'm supposed to be. It just fit, it felt right. And so I switched over to acting in New York and studied with Uta Hagen, who's a very famous acting teacher, and Herbert Berghoff. And they instilled in me a respect for the process of acting and the craft of acting. And so I was really thinking about pursuing it in that vein and studied with them for a couple of years. And then I decided to, start auditioning and just started, with smaller things like off Broadway plays and small parts in films. And then, as you mentioned, the after school specials. And so, yeah, just started from there. But just a real passion for the craft of acting, wanting to learn as much as I could. And I had incredibly supportive parents who were just behind me and really encouraged me to go for it.
That's awesome. It's 1983 and you get your first big job as an actress in the comedy Wilderness. It's at the Roundabout Theater in Midtown Manhattan,
Yes.
which originally started in the basement of a supermarket around 18th Street and 6th Avenue. What was it like to finally be in something, right off Broadway and become a professional actress?
It was thrilling. It was beyond my wildest dreams. I remember when my agent told me that I got the part, I was literally jumping up and down screaming. I was so excited. And I met my husband in that production.
Oh, cool.
He played the lead role, Richard. I played his little sister. Um, the character was 15. So he kind of thought of me as his little sister, his little 15-year-old. But I convinced him otherwise.
That's awesome.
And we started dating kind of towards the end of that production. And then, yeah, so it was exciting and the cast was incredible. Philip Bosco, Dodie Goodman, Scott Burkholder, my husband, John Dukakis. I mean, the cast was exceptional and it was my first professional job. And it was thrilling and so fun.
Your first appearances on television or where you appeared in the CBS School Break Special, ABC After School Specials, and in the series Tales from the Dark Side. You went from theater to being on camera. Was that a big change for you?
The way that I was taught was it's no different. Your intentions are the same. You just have to be a little bit more aware that when you're working on camera, it's so intimate and the camera sees everything. So if there's a false note, the camera is going to pick it up so much quicker, I think, than, the back row of a balcony in a theater. So in my experience and what my mentors have always taught me is if you're thinking it, the camera sees it. You don't have to push. You don't have to show anything. Just be still and in the moment. And your work will, end up being a lot better. So it wasn't really, I didn't feel like, oh, this is so different. I just felt you just have to be more intimate and more specific.
You also appeared in, several times on the big screen in the 1980s. One movie I remember in particular was the 1987 movie Less Than Zero, which starred Robert Downey Jr., James Spader, Andrew McCarthy, all in their younger years when they were, coming up in the business. What was it like working with them? And did you see anything in them that you thought at some point in time, these guys are going to become pretty big stars?
Absolutely. It was great working with them. Jamie Gertz also played the female lead. That was a really amazing production, really great director, this Polish director named Marek Kaniewski. And I remember when I got cast in that, I was living in New York and I was the only actor from New York. I think they hired sort of the supporting cast in LA. And it was a special project for me because it was my first um, film, and everybody just we all just kind of hung out, and it was my first time in LA, and I just think Robert Downey Jr. is so exceptional in the role in that film. It was just so obvious to me and everyone that bigger and better things were in store for him. And he was so incredibly committed and worked so hard. And, Andrew too, and James Spader, and everybody was just incredible.
Yeah, if I remember right, Robert Downey Jr., that was probably his first big role because I know he had been in Weird Science in 85, and
Right.
then he had been in Back to School in 86, and he had more of a supporting role back then. So this was his big shot too, wasn't it?
I think so. I mean, I'm not up on everything with his career, but I think it was one of his early big successes where everybody said, "Oh my God, this kid is amazing."
What are the most important qualities of a great actor?
Hmm. I think for me, the work that I respond to the most are people's performances who are unafraid to be vulnerable. And that can take on a lot of different forms. It can be, some of my favorite actors are Joaquin Phoenix and Sean Penn, some favorite female actresses. I love Octavia Spencer, and I love Elle Fanning and Dakota Fanning, and I love Harrison Ford. And you can look through their performances and see how committed to the story they are and the truth of the story and their characters, and how they're not like trying to be cool. They're serving the story and allowing themselves to be vulnerable and in every situation.
Throughout the rest of the 80s, you were in television shows such as Kate and Alley and 30 something. And you got, the first big starring role in Stephen King's, film Graveyard Shift in 1990. What was that experience like to be starring in a major film?
God, it was amazing. I never thought I was going to get that role. I think Lori Petty was supposed to get it. I don't know if you know who she is. She was in A League of Their Own. She was Gina Davis's little sister. She's
Okay.
an actress, and she was supposed to get it. I think she was doing it, but then she fell out because of her schedule or something like that. And so I went and met with the director, and we just, kind of had a nice rapport. And he wanted to hire me, and it was really the most fun I've ever had working on a movie. It was in the summer. We were filming in Maine. It was, a horror movie, and I got to do a lot of stunts and things that I'd never really gotten to do before. And working on a Stephen King project. I mean, it was just really, really a lot of fun. And I had a blast doing that.
This December 13th, you and your husband, Scott Burkholder, are going to celebrate I believe, your 30th anniversary.
Yes.
And, he's a former actor. He appeared in such films as, I believe, Crimson Tide, Con
Yeah.
Air, My Fellow Americans, Gone in 60 Seconds. You talked about, where you guys met and how you met. When did you know after you started dating him that he was the one?
You know, Immediately we had a connection, but we were sort of on again, off again for about 10 years. And I don't know, we always just came back to each other. And he asked me to marry him, I think, when I was shooting Graveyard Shift.
Oh,
That's when we got engaged.
wow. And so just, on again and off again that way. But is it a lot of that was your schedules and everything like that too, being an actor?
Absolutely. You go out of town for 3 months and um, at a time. And for a couple of years, I was working in Europe a lot. I worked in Poland and Copenhagen, and he was all over the United States doing different movies. And, things just keep you apart. And it was actually after I did that movie, Triumph of the Spirit, that I really was feeling um, I want to have children. I want to have a family. That movie, filming that movie, had a profound effect on me and my life. And so, yeah, that's kind of when I think we really committed to that with each other.
In the 2000s, you appeared in, some big time television shows. I talked about, Law and Order, Criminal Intent, also ER. In 2007, you got a recurring role on Grey's Anatomy. Tell us a little bit about the character you played, Carly Height.
I played a woman who I was in this giant ferry accident. It was like a two-part special, 2 episodes, and somehow I get separated from my son. And so the through line of my character is that I'm incredibly injured. I might die, but my focus is what's going on with my son, and begging everyone to help me find him. And that was a wonderful experience, very challenging role. Being on a stretcher with an abdominal injury. How do you find that balance between, the desperation of having this horrible injury and making that real for yourself and the viewers without faking it or trivializing it, or in my mind, it's just about using your imagination and imagining yourself in the circumstances and, telling the story that's written to the best of your ability. And on a show like that, you have so much support. It's so well written,
Right.
so well directed. The actors, the costume people, the consultants, everybody's there to help you do your best. And on a show like that, when everyone is at the top of their game, it's almost easier in the way to do your best work because you have so much support.
That makes a lot of sense. In the 2010s, you appeared in television several times, including the show Southland, and you had a recurring role on the NBC show Parenthood. Tell the audience why you're about the character you played and why it was extra special for you to be on that show.
On Parenthood?
Yeah.
Well, the reason it was so exciting for me to be on Parenthood was that I got to act with my son, Max Burkholder, who played Max Braverman on Parenthood. And we'd always wanted to work together, and that was just a great opportunity. I played his teacher. He played a child with autism who was mainstreamed in a regular classroom, and we have a couple of scenes together where I'm trying to get him to raise his hand and not talk over the other students and not give us every piece of information that he knows about something, and give other people a chance to answer a question. And so we had a couple of scenes that just stand out as a sort of highlight for me because it was so fun working with him. And also the creators of that show, the directors, again, everyone was just at the top of their game. And I also had a couple of scenes with Monica Potter, and that was wonderful. She played Max's mom on the show, and that was really a wonderful special experience.
How did he feel about having you on the show?
He was so cute and loved it, and was like getting me water and running lines with me. And because I was going into his world and that was
Right.
his space, and he was so generous and wonderful. And proud and proud of me. It was wonderful.
That's awesome. What is the most important thing that you do when you're preparing for a role?
Um, it depends on the role. It depends on the story, but typically, I think the most important aspect of acting is imagination. So you can do a lot of research, like for instance, when I did Triumph of the Spirit, which took place during the Holocaust, I read a lot of books. I read Night by Elie Wiesel and Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and I read a lot of other firsthand accounts of being in the camps, learned about the history. But I think that in addition to that, one of the most important components, certainly for me, is imagining myself in the circumstances. And that can take as much time as you have. If I have a month before, I'm going to spend 5-6 hours a day working on it. If I have a week before, I'm going to spend all day, every day working on it. I don't think you're ever done.
Right.
I think that you just keep working on it until they say action and then cut, and then you're moving on to the next scene. But you keep working. I keep working on it always.
Your most recent television roles were on the miniseries Gilmore Girls, A Year in the Life, and on the show For the People. However, about over a 10 to 15 year period, you made the decision to cut back on your career and put your family first, which is awesome. Was it hard for you sometimes doing that with something that you enjoy so much and that you're good at?
You know, it wasn't hard for me because I was so involved with my family, and also because my son was a child actor, I was on set with him. So I was still around
Right.
wonderful, brilliant, creative people. Yes, I had pangs of, oh gosh, I really want to get back into it full time. So there were those moments where I knew once my children were older, I was going to go back to it. And in fact, I just did a short film that was directed by a Memphian, Jan Jelinek. I don't know if you know her. She's a really brilliant writer and director. And I just did her short film about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, awesome. It was that fun getting back out there again?
Amazing. It's she wrote this piece called A Shattering. It's about a marriage kind of at the end of its life. And it's 20 pages. So I don't know if it's a short, I don't know technically what the terms are, but it's two characters. It's me and an actor named Scott Cohen, who was on Billions and was in Kissing Jessica Stein. He's fantastic. And we shot over 3 days in Pennsylvania. And I'm sure it'll be, in the festivals. And I think she's a really terrific female filmmaker. And I was honored to be in her film.
Once Max started college at Harvard, you said you had more time to get back at it like you're doing now. And you said, quote, "I love the theater. The theater really is my first love, and I'm going to try to do as much as I can," unquote. Why do you enjoy theater work so much?
I think that I enjoy theater work so much because, for a lot of reasons. First of all, it was my training. Second of all, when you're in a play, you go on and no one can mess with you
Right.
until it's over. You get notes, obviously, from your director, your stage manager, which you welcome. But I find it more gratifying as an actor. In film and television, the editor can shape your performance. They may pick a take that you can't stand, you might be in a perfect place mentally and give a great performance on a take, but then the sound was bad.
Right.
So, you have to be able to do it again. And that's part of the technique of film. And um, some people enjoy that more than theater. And I do love doing films and TV. I just think that theater is more of an actor's medium. And I've been privileged to work on some incredible plays and established plays as well as new plays. And that's always very thrilling too, to be the first to create a character. And it's just very gratifying as an actor. And also the live aspect of being in the room with the people and everyone experiencing something together is thrilling.
Over the last year or so, you've been involved with a part of the podcast, the Pack Podcast Online, which includes
Yes.
lots of different actors I saw, including George Wendt, who played Norm on Cheers.
Mm-hmm.
It was started by Eugene Pack. He's a writer, producer, actor, playwright, and he created and is executive producer of the CMT series, The Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders Making the Team, which, just finished airing for 16 seasons.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, the Pack Podcast.
Well, I met Eugene Pack at a reading of a play of his, and a lot of my friends are involved in the podcast. Rob Morrow and Tim Ransom and Stephen Weber and the late Willie Garson. These are all really good friends of mine, and they brought me in and said, "Oh, Kelly, you would love to do this." And so Eugene started asking me to do it. And it was in the beginning, pre-pandemic, we would get together and read all in the same room, his pieces, either at a theater or someone's home. And then occasionally he would record one of the pieces as a podcast and, put it on his podcast. But during the pandemic, he started asking everyone to do it on Zoom. And so it just became this fantastic thing every Friday night to get together and read with people like George Wendt and Lorraine Newman and just these incredible comic geniuses. And it's like, what are you kidding me? I'm getting to read a scene with George Wendt and Lorraine Newman. Like,
Right.
It blew my mind. So fun, so hilarious. And he's a gifted, prolific writer, hysterical, and just absolute joy to work on.
Who would you say is your favorite actor of all time and why? If you had to pick one.
Pick one actor of all time? That's toughy.
I know that's hard.
I really, really love Gregory Peck, and I really, really love Gentleman's Agreement. I think, everybody obviously sees him and loves him as Atticus Finch. And of course, I love that film and I love that character. But being Jewish, raised Jewish, Gentleman's Agreement spoke to me in a way that it's very personal. And I think that Mr. Peck was ahead of his time in terms of championing issues of civil rights and anti-Semitism at a time when it could really have cost him. And he chose to do it anyway. And I have such great admiration for his example and bravery and his gift as an actor.
You spoke about Triumph of the Spirit. People that don't know, it's a film from 1989. It's about the Holocaust, and it stars William Dafoe, Edward James Olmos, Robert Loggia. You said of the film, quote, It was filmed at Auschwitz. I'm so proud about being part of that film. It was a life-changing experience for me, unquote. Describe to us, if you can, what it was like to be at Auschwitz and film that movie.
It was probably the most profound experience of my life. I think that for me, growing up in the South as a Jew, you can understand anti-Semitism, and you can read about it and you can learn about it, which we did growing up. But actually being on that ground, and I think that's why so many people go and visit that space. There's something that you learn in yourselves, I feel like, from being there that can't be transferred. I mean, certainly not by someone like me, by someone like Elie Wiesel. Yes, he wrote this piece of literature to share with the world what it was like so we never forget. And that had a profound effect on me as well. But being there and seeing the ovens and the barracks and the smell really made me understand what happened there in a way that up until that point for me in a history book I hadn't felt. And I was the only Jewish person in the whole lead cast. And not that I think you have to be Jewish to understand or sympathize. I don't think you do, but there was a certain vulnerability as being Jewish in that space that was profound. And I keep saying that word, but it was. And also balancing that devastation with a sense of a little bit of guilt almost that my ancestors and I'm certain relatives had perished there. And I was there as an actor making a movie about it. It was a privilege and an honor. And I felt a great responsibility to be accurate and respectful and do justice to the memory of the people that perished there.
I can't even imagine. That had just to be just incredible. Just incredible.
It was. And to actually be filming there, I believe, I could be wrong, but I think we were the first film to be allowed to film on the grounds. Wow. And everyone was very respectful of the space and the hallowed ground that we were on. And it was treated with dignity and respect at every moment.
I believe that you're a cancer survivor.
I am.
If you're okay with it, please tell us a little bit about that and how it, made you into a stronger person today.
Absolutely. I actually have had cancer a couple of times. The first time I was an infant, I had a childhood cancer called neuroblastoma that my father was in medical school, and he actually felt like there was something wrong and took me to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician was like, oh no, you're in medical school. Of course you think everything you learn about one of your family members has, but something in him was like, no, there's something wrong with this baby. And he took me to the hospital where he was working as an intern and said, can you please, do a chest x-ray? They found a mass. And then I'm very lucky because, in the 60s, they didn't have a lot of therapies for childhood cancers. St. Jude was just getting started. I was treated at Le Bonheur, and Um, I think at the time there was a 2% survival rate for that childhood cancer. So very lucky. And then, so growing up, I always had a sense of um, just being lucky. Not really knowing exactly what happened as a young child, but knowing there was something, some illness, and that there was a lot to be grateful for.
Right.
And I think when you grow up with that perspective, the little things, you don't sweat the small stuff, as my dad used to say, and my mom says still, um, because you're appreciative for just breathing and walking around. And then when my children were, I think one was in fourth grade, one was in eighth grade, I had breast cancer, but it was also, again, I feel so lucky. It was found stage 1, and I had surgery, but I didn't have to have chemo. I didn't have to have radiation. And again, just felt so lucky. And yes, it was a lot to go through and it was not fun, but it wasn't life threatening. And I'm a, you know, glass half full. What do I have to be thankful for today? And just encouraging all my friends and everybody I know to go get their mammograms because that's how it was found, and um, helping shed light on it, in any way that I can.
A father's gut instinct when you were a
Yes,
baby.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And and I say that to everyone now, like, parents know, and you have to advocate for yourself, your children, get a second opinion, keep going. Um, and sometimes, a lot of times doctors know, but sometimes they
True.
won't.
Right. And I mean, if he hadn't have had that gut instinct and gotten that second opinion and waited, I mean, with the 2% on the front end, I mean, yeah, what would happen. So it was supposed to happen that way. There are no coincidences, in my opinion, at least not on that level.
I agree. I agree.
You and Scott have two children, Max, who I believe is 24, and
Yes,
James is, I think, 28.
yes.
Tell us a little bit about your kids.
They're very different. One's an actor, and Max, obviously, we talked about Max. James is a composer. He composes music for film and television. And I used to say when they were little, and it's so true, we would come out of a movie, Max would be saying the lines, and James would be humming the music. And it really bore out to who they became as adults. And it's just funny to me that I think that, yes, you shape your children as best as you can to be good people by setting an example, but they sort of come who they are. And I mean, that's what I think about it. I mean, they were completely different in utero. Max was, trying to get out, and James was very quiet. And that's exactly their personalities.
That's awesome. You have three siblings, Gary, Brad, and Dory. Gary is a chartered financial analyst and works for Angelo Gordon in New York.
Mhm.
Brad followed in your dad's footsteps in life, and you said of him, quote, "My brother, Dr. Brad Wolf, out there every day saving lives, my hero," unquote. And Dory is a registered nurse here in Memphis, and her birthday was June 2nd, and you posted, quote, "Happy birthday, Sister Boo. You're the most fun and sweetest sister in the world. Love you more than life itself," unquote. Tell us a little bit about your brothers and your sister.
I'm very lucky. We're all very close. We have, taken different paths. Well, Brad and Dory are both in the medical field. And we're all different. We have different hobbies and passions. Gary's really into sports. Brad's an equestrian, very accomplished on a national level, as well as an accomplished heart surgeon. My little sister is the most fun in any room, in any party. Um, she just attacks life and lives every moment to the fullest. She is also an incredible nurse. Her heart is huge. She was a CICU nurse, cardiac intensive care unit, when my dad was practicing as well. And she would take care of his patients and she would take care of Brad's patients. And she's taken care of me a number of times post surgery. And she's always the person you want on your side.
Yeah, I have really good memories of Dory. Dory's always been a sweetheart.
She absolutely is.
Your mom and dad, Brenda and Rodney, they were married for over 60 years, which is incredible. This past Mother's Day, you said, quote, "Happy Mother's Day, Brenny. I love you, and we're the luckiest to have you as our mom. You are the best." Tell us about her.
Oh, I'm gonna start crying. I'm sorry.
Okay.
My mother is the most amazing human. Also, like my sister, in that she lives life to the fullest and is the most fun in every room, and everybody wants to be around her. She's so warm and so generous. And she and my dad met when I think my mom was 13 and my dad was 17, 16 or 17. And they were fixed up on a date by my mom's aunt. And the story is, my grandfather, my dad's father, said something to the effect of, "I want you to marry that little girl." And they dated for a long time, and then I guess got serious later when she was more like 17, and then they got married at 19. And they were so in love with each other and best friends, and did a lot together, but also gave each other space. And they were just a loving, wonderful couple. And then my father, he had a long illness. And when I say she rarely left his side, devotion is an understatement.
Wow. There's so much to say about your dad, Dr. Rodney Wolf, that we probably actually, honestly, we could probably spend a whole podcast talking about him and the things he accomplished in his career. I remember my dad used to talk about your dad often and told me that your dad actually once saved my dad's life. He loved your dad. He loved him.
I didn't know that. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
And I know that, he passed away last year at the age of 84, and your father spent over 50 years in practice of cardiac, thoracic, and vascular surgery here at Baptist Hospital in Memphis, and performed over 10,000 open heart procedures. I mean, that's just mind blowing.
Mm-hmm.
He was the innovator of cardiac surgery in Memphis in the Mid-South, and had respect of all of his colleagues. He taught and trained doctors for over 30 years. He was a major in the United States Air Force. He was an aviator, and I would say probably one of the top 5 all-time UT football fans, if I had to guess, as big of a fan as he was. Marie Adams Mitchell, who was on his care team, said this about your father, and this is long, but I think it's worth sharing for sure. Quote, "These past couple of weeks, I've had many things pulling at my heartstrings, but today is a bittersweet moment as the loved ones of Dr. Rodney Wolf prepared to lay him to rest and celebrate his accomplished life. Another celebration takes place today. Happy 62nd wedding anniversary, Dr. Rodney and Mrs. Brenda Wolf. They say behind every great man is a great woman. I attest we'd all agree 62 years of marriage says enough in itself. Being married to a heart surgeon is no easy task, but it takes 2 to tango, and they did it. There must be sincere love, commitment, dedication, sacrifice, compromise, sharing, and a ton of other ingredients to make 62 years. Mrs. Brenda, as you lay the love of your life and soulmate to rest today, you make all of us better because of your graceful charm, loving character, unspeakable courage. A great relationship doesn't happen because of the love you had at the beginning, but how well you continue to build love until the end. Unquote. I know that says, exactly who your dad was and who your mom was and what your parents were like together. But if you don't mind, just sharing just a little bit about your dad, the dad side of him,
Yeah.
the family man that I know had a big impact on your life.
Yeah, my dad was an incredible, fun, loving, sweet dad. He obviously was extremely busy especially when we were little. But if I had a dance recital or something, he always made it a point to be at them. And I remember he would come home from the hospital. He'd always have his white coat on, and he'd always have junior mints in the pocket. Um, and that was my favorite candy. And I would always go in his white coats and get the candy out of his pocket. And I know he would put them in there just for us. And he set the bar high. He just set an example. He wasn't like strict, or we didn't have a lot of rules. We just did our best because he did his best. And there was a certain like, I remember being little and the phone would ring, and I mean, the house would freeze. Everyone would be silent because that phone call could be someone's life.
Right.
And he would answer the phone, and if it was the hospital, the silence would continue. And then if it wasn't the hospital, everyone would just go about their business. But we all knew, and we wanted to do what we could in our small way to allow him to be the best doctor that he could be. And he was exceptional in that he could be an incredible skilled surgeon, but also sit on the end of somebody's bed and hold their hand and talk to them about what they were facing. And everyone has experiences with doctors, and not a lot of doctors have both of those, especially the exceptional technical surgeons.
Right.
And I think that was part of what made him so extraordinary, was his humanity as well as his skill.
That's so big today because so many doctors today, I mean, they're very talented at what they do, but so many of them do not have a good bedside manner at all. And the doctors that were brought up in your dad's era and my dad's era, when he was in podiatry school, and they're around the same age,
Exactly.
their bedside manner was so much better, and
So much.
their patients loved them and they trusted them, and that's huge.
Absolutely, 100% could not agree more. I think they were taught to see the person, and sometimes that gets lost in medicine today. And not that people don't want to be a good doctor, but there's so many responsibilities. I remember going to the doctor with my mom after she had her hip replaced, and the poor doctor, I mean, he had to chart so much on a computer, he barely had time to look at her, but that's the law. He has to do it.
Right.
So I don't think necessarily I think it was just a different system. I think people are wonderful today too. It's just a different system, and that's not supported and encouraged. What do you think?
No, I think that's right. I think that even when I go to a regular doctor and stuff, the nurse or nurse practitioner comes in at the beginning, but even when the doctor comes in, you're right, he's charting on the computer. So you're just hoping that you get enough time with them. And I've had some wonderful doctors over the year
Yeah,
and everything,
me
thankfully.
too.
But then I've also had those ones where you wait in the waiting room for an hour, you get back in the room, you wait another hour, and they come
For
in and
sure.
spend 5 minutes at the most with you, and you're like, wait a second, that's not what I thought I was going to get today.
Right. I have a few more questions if
Right.
you don't mind. Yeah.
But I think that the way they were taught in in your dad, obviously medical school, my dad in podiatry school, actually helped shape the men who they were and who they became, because it shows that character, and that's so important, in the way they treated people. And I know, like I said, my dad loved your dad, and my dad told me how much his patients loved him because they trusted him. and
Yeah.
and, and like I said, that's just huge today, and so that's awesome.
And Brad too is an excellent doctor and carries on in my dad's traditions. And now my nephew, Dory's oldest, is at UT Medical School in his freshman year.
Oh, that's awesome. Well,
Mhm.
congratulations to that. That's great.
Yeah.
Kelly, this is one other question I have to ask you, and I usually end is, what are the most important lessons that you've learned in your life?
Well, one thing my dad used to say, which I say all the time, we all do, and if you have to say you is, you ain't. And I kind of live my life by that. But I mean, that's kind of joking, but also kind of serious.
Sure.
Be humble, do your work, and be nice to people. Love with all your heart.
I have good memories at your house. Actually, I learned how to swim. My cousin Terry Lynn Petrovsky at the time,
Oh,
yeah, her dad Mo and my dad were first cousins.
I remember.
Yeah. And so I learned how to swim at your house, and Terry Lynn made me get in the pool and swim when I didn't want to. But I remember that as a little kid. So it was so much fun over there. And just like I said, watching you as an actress, growing up as, when I was in high school, and seeing you on the TV shows and the movie, it was just so cool because you're like, oh my God, that girl used to babysit for us. So,
That's so sweet. Thank you
it was
so
cool.
much.
So I definitely appreciate you coming on today, and I would love to have
Thank
you
you.
on again sometime.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll go and I'll do a lot more work, and then I'll have something to come back and talk about with you.
That sounds awesome. Thanks again, Kelly.
Thank you so much, Michael. This was so much fun. Thank you.
My pleasure. Bye bye.